Hello there. Thank you for coming to me with this question. Thank you for allowing me to post this publicly so that others might be able to learn as well. But basically, what you came to me asking was for more information about your moon sign. You said that you were confused by your moon sign. You wanted to know kind of what its meaning was in relation to your sun sign or in combination with your sun sign. And so, as you can see from your chart here, you have Sun in Virgo, you have Moon in Sagittarius. I just ran the chart with no time since you said you weren't exactly sure. But with your chart, it actually doesn't matter the time as long as it's within this day. The Moon will be in Sagittarius and the Sun will be in Virgo. Okay. So before we talk about your specific Sun and Moon signs, let's just talk about what Sun and Moon signs have to do with in general. So, generally speaking, both are the luminaries, both are clearly the most powerful, the brightest uh, positions, the brightest placements that are in the sky. So they kind of dominate the sky, right? And so when we're approaching astrology this way, looking at different themes that we're dealing with, different parts of our personality, I think it's pretty clear that the sun and moon would have the most to do with kind of who we are in general, especially as individuals. Like, what is your individual personality? That's going to depend more on the sun and moon by far than any other placements. I think after the sun and moon, we would look to the other, like, kind of inner planets. So that'd be Mercury, Venus, Mars. Those have a lot to do with the individual personality as well. But really, again, the sun and moon have way more to do with so much of who we are and what we deal with on a daily level as individuals. The sun is more kind of who you are during the day, you could think of. So the sun represents the part of ourselves that is more kind of external, more casual. This is who we are around coworkers, friends. It's kind of who we are on a shallow level. It's how we represent ourselves, how we exert ourselves into the world. The sun is more masculine in nature. The moon is more kind of feminine in nature. You can think of it that way. The moon more represents who we are on an actual kind of deeper level. It represents how we process emotions. Quick side note, I've noticed that when people are inebriated from anything ranging from alcohol to caffeine or other things, I've noticed that they tend to embody their moon sign a lot more because, again, moon sign has to do with who we are emotionally. It's how our instincts kind of operate. It's what's going on with us on a deep level. It's the core personality. So this is, the moon sign more represents how we are around people that are very close to us that know us very well. They would know us more so as our moon sign. So that would be, family members, if, a significant other maybe, or very close friends, etc. They would know us more like our moon sign, if that makes sense. So for you in particular, you have Sun in Virgo. You probably are familiar with Virgo traits, and you would probably relate to these as well. You've got not only Sun in Virgo, but Mercury in Virgo. It's pretty common to have Mercury in the same sign as your Sun. So for most people, including yourself, Mercury almost acts kind of together with the sun. They're both in the same sign. They're pretty close to one another. They're acting as almost like a unit, kind of. They're almost, you could say yours are conjunct. So they're basically in the same place. So this basically means that, you would resonate with Virgo traits. So Virgo is said to be very kind of orderly, very organized, very detail oriented. They love learning. They can handle pretty impressive amounts of information. They can learn very quickly, and they can learn about very complex concepts because of their detailed approach to everything. They also have a strong work ethic. They're constantly, working on things and, breaking large projects down into smaller projects and getting all these tasks done. And they can be ambitious, but Virgo is also a pretty humble sign. They're not usually super bold. They're not dying to be in charge of everything necessarily. They actually enjoy kind of a larger structure around them, I would say. So that's kind of who you are. Again, this is more on a general level. This is this is who you are on kind of a shallow level or an external level. But deep down inside, you have Moon in Sagittarius, which is very different. So again, Moon, I already said what the Moon has to do with the inner personality, the core personality. Yours is represented by Moon and Sagittarius, so this is much different. There's different ways we can go about analyzing the Moon and Sun signs. One way would be to just look at what do these signs have in common, because those commonalities are going to run through your entire personality, right? So although Sagittarius and Virgo are very different, they do have some things in common. They are both mutable signs, so they both correspond to the end of their respective seasons, Virgo being the end of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, Sagittarius being the end of fall. So signs at the end of seasons, or in other words, the mutable signs, Sagittarius and Virgo, as well as Gemini and Pisces, they all do have a lot in common. They all are kind of detached on some level. Many of them are intellectual, and they're all about learning. They're all about being adaptable and kind of expanding the identity, I guess. So because you have Sun and Virgo with Moon and Sagittarius, that would suggest that you are very adaptable. You're very open toward change and, adapting yourself, camouflaging. You might be very different depending on the circumstances. So your personality traits may vary pretty dramatically depending on what's going on in your life, as well as what kind of people you're around, etc. You kind of, again, you're adaptable basically. What else? Both Sagittarius and Virgo have a lot to do with learning as well. Virgo is much more detail oriented. Sagittarius is much more broad minded. Sagittarius wants to go out and just explore the world and adventure and learn more hands on. But Sagittarius is also intellectual. They also enjoy kind of, imagining and kind of, they can be very academically active or invested as well. So, in other words, we're combining two very intellectual signs. So this would suggest that you are very interested in learning, and you can kind of do it all. You can do the very learn about very practical subjects, learn about very straightforward subjects. That would be more like Virgo. But with the Sagittarius moon, that shows that you're also very curious. You're very expansive. You're very open to things like philosophy. That's what Sagittarius is known for. And the moon, how do I put this? So moon does have to do with the inner personality, but what I've noticed is that whenever the moon is in a fire signs are just like they sound. They're very fiery. They're very active. They're very dramatic, kind of theatrical. They can be very impulsive. And so this is where Sagittarius and Virgo are very different. Your Virgo side is very responsible, very thought out. It's actually not very spontaneous. Virgo prefers routine, and it is very adaptable, but it doesn't like to change too quickly. So that's the Virgo side. But the Sagittarius side is fire. The fire signs, Sagittarius as well as Aries and Leo. I'm getting distracted. What I was trying to say is, whenever the moon is in a fire sign, because when you have the inner personality in such an active state and you are so, fiery, so warm, so outgoing, the traits of the fire moon tend to kind of permeate outward. So if you had the moon sign in a much more introverted sign, like moon in, I don't know, Cancer maybe, or Scorpio, or Capricorn, those traits would kind of stay kind of concealed. Other people really wouldn't know you that way unless they knew you very well, because it would represent a much more private part of yourself. But because moon is in a fire sign, which is very transparent, very outgoing, very very impulsive, you kind of radiate this energy outward, if that makes sense. So other people may actually see that warmth, that outgoing nature. Sagittarius, whatever placements are in Sagittarius, tend to be very optimistic and very, they see the glass half full. They're very, cheerful, kind of sunshiny energies. So yes, moon is there. That is kind of the deeper part of your personality. But again, it probably kind of radiates outward, if that makes sense. That's the best way I can explain it. What else do I want to say about that? So one way of, this is so disorganized, I'm sorry, but one way of looking at it is to compare the two signs. We kind of did that already. But we can also look at their differences. Fire and earth. Sagittarius and Virgo, one way of looking at it would be to look at the angle the two signs make to one another as well. So Sagittarius and Virgo, they are square to one another. Your sun and moon signs specifically, they're not square by aspect. So in other words, moon is at 11 degrees Sagittarius. You said that you were probably born very early in the day, so moon may be even earlier in Sagittarius, and you have Sun at the very end of Virgo. So although they don't square by aspect, they do square by sign, basically. So what I mean by that is Sagittarius and Virgo are 3 signs away from each other. They're 90 degrees away from each other. So this means that the way you are kind of on the outside level is actually very different than how you are deep down. You are both, although these signs are very different from one another, and you may feel like a contradiction at times. You are both. You are both very practical, organized, analytical, like Virgo, but you're also very outgoing and dramatic and spontaneous, like Sagittarius, at the same time, if that makes sense. And like what I touched on earlier too, any kind of, I don't know if you do partake in any substances at all, but even something just as basic as caffeine would really amp up the moon sign, and it would likely make you act more like a Sagittarius, so much more outgoing, adventurous, very charismatic, etc. But I think that's all I have to say, kind of on a very basic level about your sun and moon signs. I know that was very disorganized, kind of scattered, and I kind of threw a lot of different concepts at you. But hopefully that kind of opens up the picture a little bit. I do think this is very exciting. It's so exciting when you realize that there's a moon sign. You're not just your sun sign, there's a whole moon sign, and then you can learn about what that's all about. And then you can kind of branch out from there. I think that's how many people, including myself, that's how I learned about astrology. That's how many people tend to do it. There are other ways of going about it, but that's, I think, the most common way. So yeah, from here, I don't expect you to know all about your sun and moon sign just from this video, but maybe this can kind of open you up to some new concepts. And I would encourage you to just research each placement. That's kind of what I did for myself. That's what many people do. Sun in Virgo, moon in Sagittarius, you can research those concepts. And then you can kind of branch out from there and go through Mercury, Venus, Mars. I will say that because, you have both Venus and Mars in Leo and moon in Sagittarius. So you do have a lot of fire placements, really. Most people with just Sun in Virgo aren't going to have the amount of fire placements that you do. Sun in Virgo, that's the earth placement. So although you do have that, stable steadiness of Virgo and of the earth element, you've also got a lot of fire, a lot of that charismatic, outgoing, optimistic, adventurous energy that comes from, not only moon and Sagittarius, but also the Venus and Mars in Leo. So anyway, I hope that helps you. Let me know any questions you have about anything I just said. And best of luck on your journey. And I'm excited for you to learn more.